Hi, my name is Danya Shakfeh, and I am the founding attorney of Motiva Business Law. We're a law firm in Chicago area and Tampa, Florida. I have with me today the founders of GiftWorks LLC, Laurie and Amber. And these two ladies are both entrepreneurs, and they help organ donors find organ. They help organ donors find organ recipients. And their business model is, it's not something I've seen before. And so I really wanted to meet with them today so they could talk about what they do and why they do it. So with that said, welcome to my channel.
Of course.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Of course. So, Laurie, I know I'm going to start with you and talk about your history. I know you already have a very established business, Swift Passports. And so why don't you tell me about why you guys had started this venture and how you used your current entrepreneurial skills for this new business?
Good question. So starting with kind of how we got into this.
Yes.
I'd say that goes back as far as 2011. My dad, who both of us are very close to, received a life-saving liver transplant, and it was from a deceased donor. It was a very stressful time in life, but once he had his transplant, he was healthy afterwards. He recovered very quickly. Life went back to normal very quickly. And that was my introduction to transplant, and I assume yours as well.
Absolutely, yes.
Mm-hmm. And in going through that process, I just really felt like the only reason we got an organ was because people subscribed to the idea of sharing organs. And if we're going to take from a system like that, we need to put back into the system.
Right.
And I ended up donating my own kidney to a stranger several years later as a way to put back into the system. We started a nonprofit called Transplant Village at Northwestern. And that's where Amber and I started working together on various campaigns to help people who were in need of a kidney or liver find one. My background's in passports and visas. Amber's is in marketing, so you can guess who was better at the marketing campaigns for finding kidneys and livers. But it was a collaborative effort because I was teaching a workshop once a month that was teaching people what worked. But both the patients and me, we were having trouble actually putting this Facebook page together and putting meaningful posts up. I remember several times getting frustrated because it would take more than 20 minutes to put a meaningful post up on somebody's Facebook page that I was managing. And that's because I'm not a marketer.
So that's the beauty about being an entrepreneur, I think, is that you kind of always have a skill that you can transfer from one business to another. And it's not always things that, we go to school and we learn subjects like math and science, but when you're an entrepreneur, it's about the skills. So it's about being organized, or your executive function, or creativity. And so a lot of these skills to me are transferable. So I'm curious, what skills did you find? Okay, so you're not marketing, but certainly something must have clicked. It's what that you were able to apply. And it could just be the passion, because obviously you had a personal experience with organ donation. So tell me a little bit more about that, how you're able to use that. Yeah.
So, I've created a business from nothing. So we're sitting in my office right now. We started this without any business experience. I have a degree in wildlife biology. My husband, who's my business partner at Swift, has a degree in forestry. So,
from forest to passports.
Yeah, we did to kidneys. Yes. I keep it very interesting, diverse. So I know how to start a business, and Amber does too. We're both serial entrepreneurs, so it was a very natural fit, and it's been interesting too as we started GiftWorks, how other people in our current businesses have come into GiftWorks, and it's just been a very natural fit. My husband helps with the technology and with HR stuff because that's what he does on the Swift side.
So Amber, why don't you tell me? I know that you guys had met through this experience of the organ donation, but so tell me what made you want to be more involved in this?
Sure. So actually Laurie's dad was my client at SCP Marketing. So he had approached me to build his aviation website. And he said to me, at any point this project could stop because I'm going to get a liver transplant. And that was my first introduction to transplant. And I just thought, well, what does that even mean? How do you do that? And then they're going to get it from someone that dies. So there's all this timing. And I kind of observed him and his stories, you know, as he was speaking with his family when he would get calls that we have a liver, but it didn't quite work out. So I just observed his transplant journey. And I think, you know, my relationship really started with her father. And then he said to me, you know, you remind me of my daughter, Laurie, so much. You two have to meet. And we did, and we clicked.
He was very forceful.
Yes, very forceful.
He had a dinner and invited us both to it.
Yeah, it was like, you two are dating now. You two.
Well, just from knowing the two of you, I think it's a great match.
It's a great match.
I actually would love to also learn about, like, you know, choosing a business partner, because most of my past videos have been more of just like one person who owns a business.
Sure.
But with two, it's like, how do you know when to turn a friendship, or if you should turn a friendship into a business partnership, and how do you kind of navigate, like, you want to keep the friendship, but you don't want to risk the possibility of things going wrong in the business that could affect, you know, like your friendship. So tell me how you guys are able to like navigate that, if at all. Or
I think when you're choosing a partner, you have to recognize your strengths and your vulnerabilities, because you're never going to win everything in business. There's just going to be natural things that are natural to you and you excel at. So in my case, it was branding, marketing, storytelling, coming up with a vision, seeing how things can connect with different pieces of a puzzle to build a program, and really leveraging that, creating that. That was my foundation. But Laurie, she has so much experience in transplant advocacy, and she's a go-getter. She's a natural communicator. She's a bridge builder. I tend to like to work behind the scenes. She likes to work in front. So I just saw like these skills, you could pair them together really nicely and complement one another. And I think as you merge your skills, then it's more a matter of being honest. Take the ego out. Take the ego out entirely and just say, we are here to build this business together. We're united in a common mission. So, hey, what are your core responsibilities? What are the areas you're going to shine on, and it's going to better the company? And the same for your partner, and really honoring and recognizing that, because that's when you'll be successful, is if you can work together versus against one another.
I like that.
Yeah.
And this was in 2011 when your dad had the transplant. So how long did the two of you know each other before you went into business together? It sounds like a while then.
Yeah. 11 or 12 years, 10, at least 10 years. Well, so we started working together on a volunteer basis with patients at Northwestern Transplant. And then we worked together in my company, Swift. So she's our marketing director at Swift. So we do have a very long experience of working together. So I think that goes into picking a partner as well, is that we have a relationship built on trust and a decade of working together. And it's been great for 10 years, you know, so
hopefully another 10 more.
Yeah.
So, but like,
fingers crossed.
You've seen each other in a professional setting. I think the mistake that people do is that they think if they're good friends, they can work together professionally. And that's probably where you guys saw that, like, you had the opportunity to see each other's work ethic, to see how you know, no shady, you know, transactions. Like, you guys are both like, you know, good, honest people that won't the business or each other. So that's probably really key too. So, you know, if you had any advice, like, to someone who wants to do business together, then what would you take out of that, just given your own experience?
I pick my business partners and my travel companions very, very carefully. And I can be very close to somebody and choose to never go on a trip with them. I just feel like that's something very specific that you do with a few people and not with a lot of people.
Yeah. Why travel? Tell me about that.
Because you could have a best friend that, like, you love going to dinner with and you love doing things with at home. But then, you know, you get into a travel environment, and if people are different when they travel, and I want to have a good time and relax, and, you know, I have a certain way I like to travel. And so
do you think it might like ruin the image of them after, or is that, or no?
I just, you know, some people travel and I don't know how to answer this question for you, Danya. Okay. I just travel. We travel with, we know who we travel with, right?
Okay.
And we travel okay together too.
And I think it's.
But I was nervous the first time we traveled. I'm like, I hope this works out, because we're going to be doing more of this.
I see what you're saying. Okay, so like when you're traveling, you're navigating all these things you can't control. If a flight's delayed, how does that person act under pressure?
Yeah.
You know, are they going to freak out? Are they going to remain cool? Are you vibing? Are you getting through it together? Because nothing's worse than having to deal with someone that's melting down, and you just want to get on the plane and arrive in Hawaii or wherever you're going, you know. Different travel styles.
Or do they need to hang out 24/7 once you get there? Or
are they
feel
a
like we're going to do breakfast together, have our separate thing during the day, and then meet for dinner, you know?
You don't want a stage 5 clinger. You know? You don't.
Maybe as a test before you do business with someone, take a trip.
Maybe.
I mean, that's a good, I mean, it's unusual. I've never heard that before. But I think it just popped in my head that might not be a bad idea. Because you want to see people at their worst, I think. Like, you know, prior to choosing to do business with them. As a travel, it might ruin the trip, but you know, at the end, like the trip will end. But then like the business, when you get into business and you invest money and time and you share ideas, then there's like, it's harder to just take that back, I think. So I'm going to add that to my list of things before you do
must travel with business.
Go to let's go to Hawaii.
Isn't that true for romantic relationships too?
Yes, it is.
The couple honeymoons and they're like, oh no.
Which is a partnership.
Yes.
Yes.
It's a partnership.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so back to the business. I think you started, or like GiftWorks about like 2 years ago. It's been about 2 years.
Roughly.
Yeah,
roughly.
So, what is the biggest challenge that you've encountered so far?
Oof. I think it's navigating an uncharted terrain, if that makes sense. The path isn't quite laid out. I think a lot of what we're doing, there's pieces of it that have been done before. But in a way, we're trying to pioneer and innovate a process and program that's relatively new and takes into consideration different components. And then, you know, working in business, for example, with my type of clients, right, lawyers, business professionals, is far different than navigating a medical system and learning how that industry works, or even how do insurance reimbursements work. So it's really, you have to be committed to learning. You really do, and you can't operate under the assumption that you know it all. And you have to seek out mentors that can help you. So I think that is a big challenge. It's just so new and so fresh that sometimes not having those answers right away takes time.
I think that's a good point, Amber, because I feel like in entrepreneurship in general, I mean, yes, like specifically with the healthcare, like when I've had to do healthcare related stuff, I'm like, it's like another, and I feel like there's, I think a lot of the people in the industry don't even know what's going on. They just follow their own procedure. They don't understand why it works that way. Mm-hmm. So when you want to introduce a new idea, it's just like deer in the headlights, because they don't know, they just do what they do and they don't know why they're doing it. Mm-hmm. So you can't really introduce change. But I think as a business, I really like what you said, like being committed to learning and just choosing to being an entrepreneur. I think a lot of the people think like business owners are like these tough, I think people are expected to know it all when they start off, and the reality is no. We have to put down our egos, and it is always new terrain on one form or another. And so just saying that out loud to people who want to start businesses or who are growing their businesses, it's like it's always uncharted, it's always scary, and that's normal. And so if things go off the rails, like as scary as it is, it's actually normal.
Yes,
yeah,
that's 100%.
It's going to happen.
Yeah.
Yes.
How about you, Laurie? Are there any specific challenges that you encounter that you can talk about?
For me, I think it's more on the people level versus the business level. So not everybody that we help is going to find a kidney. Yeah. And for me, I don't look at that as a failure, right? There's so many things that contribute to that. But I don't know how people in the medical profession, this is something I'm learning right now that I need to learn, but I know that they lose people, every week. And to me, to see somebody get sick or worse or not succeed is difficult for me. So that's something I'm going to get to work on as we start working with more people, is, I guess, having boundaries there to not take that on myself.
That's hard because, in business, it's like we're still human. Mm-hmm. And especially because, I'm an attorney too. So when I see people's problems and sometimes I can't fix it just because it's out of my hands, I think over time it's easy to lose your ability to empathize. And so you have to constantly exercise. It's like a specific muscle. It's like an empathy muscle, but also you have to create some distance or some sort of dissociation so that you don't lose your mind.
Yeah.
Because you can't take on everyone's problems.
Yeah.
And I think
you're dealing with people's problems all day, every day.
Even just as a record, even for like business transactions, it's supposed to be like the not so scary or not so sad, like, because I don't do so much like court stuff. I don't not do, criminal or family law. But even seeing people's like dreams not work out that they want, they've invested, they tried to buy a business, it didn't work out, but they already invested, because they got their hopes up, or they're in a business, partnership and it's not working out. And so just trying to get people to listen, like, these are the things that you have to do. And it's like you become a coach.
Yes.
And so these are things that you have to do. And it's hard. You can't really feel sorry for yourself, or you can, but you put a time on it.
Yes.
And then you have 5 minutes to cry, and then we're going to pick up and move on, kind of like that. So I think that's a separate muscle that we as service providers, especially in these areas, we have to learn, is like, you don't want to be too in it where you're like tearing yourself apart at night, after or like the door's closed, but at the same time you don't want to be like a robot talking to your patients and clients. So that's a good point too. I'd like that.
I like the cry for 5 minutes too. Like, I feel like we're pretty good about doing that. Like, I'm going to cry about this and complain about it. And now, okay, I'm done. Thank you.
Put a timer. I give myself actually I have my kids. I sit them down and I'm like, here's a timer. Here's an alarm. We're going to cry, meltdown all you want. And we're going to come back and we're going to start talking solutions. Okay.
Yes. Solutions. You have to pivot. You can't stay in that spot too long.
That's hard. That is a life.
It is hard.
Life lesson.
It's a life skill.
It's
a life skill.
So just for us, some like final words, the two of you, if you could give advice to someone, especially I'd like to hear from the perspective of someone who is starting a business that is like brand new idea, and because I have a lot of clients who have like these ideas completely uncharted, and I think it's amazing. So doing that, like, what advice would you give to someone who is starting something like completely brand new?
You got to have passion.
Yeah.
Okay. And I know both of us work a lot. I have 2 companies, Amber has 3. And sometimes I work all day Saturday, but if I'm working on GiftWorks, I'm really happy Saturday night. And I can't wait to text you and tell you what I did and tell my husband. And to me, it's passion. There's no way I could do this for something that I didn't care about as much as I care about this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think that's fair. What about you, Amber?
I think it's, sometimes we think we have a great idea and we want to run with it, and we do have the passion, but can we possibly seek out mentors and other people that have navigated entrepreneurship? Because you want, you don't want to be shut down, but can someone kind of poke holes in what you're trying to put out there? That's the best thing you can do. Mm-hmm. Like, really work through that, work through your proof of concept, develop the roadmap, and then align yourself with mentors. Maybe they're not directly in your industry or related to what you're doing, but they have the experience because they've built successful businesses that they can actually give you guidance. And I would say seek those mentors early on. And again, I always say take the ego out of it, because you're not going to know everything. So that's why it's really important to seek out people that can give you advice in different areas. That's actually a strength, to be able to ask for help.
Yeah. Absolutely necessary.
And we have excellent mentors.
We do.
That's good.
We do.
We're good at.
That's awesome. Mm-hmm. That's good to hear, because it's hard to find good mentors in my experience.
Yeah, it can be. It really can be.
So technically your clients are hospitals, right? Or hospital systems, right?
Yes.
So if a hospital system wanted your services, what is the best way for them to contact you?
You could go to our website. So it's yourgiftworks.com, and there's a contact us form on there, and that's the best way to get in touch with both of us. So,
awesome. And we're going to have a link to that in whatever format. If this is YouTube, it's on the bottom. If it's on social media, it's probably on the top, but you'll find the text there somewhere. All right. Well, thank you so much, Laurie and Amber. It was so good. This was really fun. And I'm glad to see you guys finally in person.
Absolutely.
Yeah, us too.
Yes.
And thank you for helping us get here. You're one of our trusted people.
Advisors.
Of course. No, you're welcome. It was my pleasure. It's
lawyer
been super
up.
fun working with you. Yes, that's another good example. Lawyer up. Yes, I endorse that advice. So thank you for saying
hashtag.
that. Hashtag lawyer up.
Yeah, I've written it up there.
Well, okay. Well, thank you again, ladies.
Thank you.
Thanks, Danya.
All right, you're welcome.
Thank you.